All right, welcome back to another episode. Today's kind of an exciting day for me and for some of you. I get to talk about my Titanium MiG 170. We're doing the 2-year review on it now. Had it for a little while, done some pretty cool stuff. We'll talk about that, talk about like pros, cons, how this thing works, all that fun jazz. And then at the end of the video, I am going to be talking about a giveaway. I'm going to be giving this welder as well as the 150 amp spool gun for it away to one of you guys. So make sure you follow along to the end of the video and I'll be giving the details on that. Okay, so the first thing I kind of want to talk about here is just like an overview of the welder. So it's a Harbor Freight welder, Titanium MiG 170 is what it is. It's a 170 amp welder. It can operate off of 120 or 240 volts, and it comes with an adapter to run on 120. You just plug it into the main 240 cord, and then there's a switch on the back that you can switch to operate on either one. Right? It uses DINS 25 plugs, which they're a little smaller, but it seems to have worked fine. I haven't had any issues with it. It's a little dirty. It's been used. It's been in the garage for a while. It comes with a 10-foot ground cable and a 10-foot torch lead, as well as it'll come with, like, this is the factory. I don't know. This might be 5-6 feet. The gas hose, and then it does come with a regulator as well. Overall, pretty simple. You can see that my handle is broken off of here. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But not a whole lot going on. It's small, it's lightweight, it works pretty well, and we'll go into all that stuff. So see down here you can switch from 140 or 120 to 240 with that switch, and then here's the on and off switch as well. It does have a option to buy a spool gun, which I do have, and I will be giving that away, but we're going to do the spool gun update in a separate video following this one. Okay, so I've got my notes here, and I wanted to break this down into like the most simple way that I could think of while hitting the most important points without rambling on about stuff. And then I'm going to rate each category based off of a 5-star rating, right? So if it sucks, 1 star. If it's amazing, 5 stars. Okay, pretty simple. So the first thing I have is user-friendly, and I feel like this is probably one of the most important things, being it's a hobby welder and not something like some industrial welder. So, and if you're buying this as an industrial welder, don't, because it's not an industrial welder. So it's fairly user-friendly. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 stars in user-friendliness. There's only a few settings on here. It's pretty hard to screw it up, but the diagram they give you on the inside of the panel for different thicknesses, what settings you should have the welder on, are a little flawed, and that could just be me. I tend to have my settings a bit hotter than what it recommends, and for somebody who's first starting out with welding and learning how to weld, I don't think it's a great starting point. And so that's really like my only complaint for user friendliness. Everything else is really simple. I just wish that this was a little bit more thought out for that, or it doesn't use amperage for settings. It uses volts and maybe amperage, because most of the stuff you look at online for somebody who's watching YouTube videos, they're going to have people talking about amperage and wire speed versus voltage and wire speed. And so that's pretty much my 2 cents on that. So user friendliness, 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, so the next category that I broke this down into is reliability. So how well does this thing work? Not if you drop kicked it across the room, is it still going to work? Just like general reliability with it. And I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 stars. It works extremely well. I haven't had any major malfunction. I haven't had any malfunctions with it whatsoever. The only thing that I don't like is the duty cycle on it's very low. It's a 25% duty cycle, which for those of you who don't know, it can operate for 2.5 minutes and you need to let it cool off for 7.5 minutes, making 10 minutes, giving you your 25% duty cycle. And so I found that in certain situations, you're gonna, like, stopping every 2.5 minutes can be a pain, and I push through that. I've pushed through duty cycle most of the time when I'm welding with this, and after a little bit of doing that, it'll slow down the wire feed a little bit, and so you kind of have to stop and let the thing cool off, which is no fault to this. It's just kind of annoying in my opinion. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 stars. No real issues. It's been very reliable the whole time that I've had it. All right, next one, versatility. What can you do with it, and how well does it do certain jobs? So I'm gonna give it 3 out of 5 stars for versatility. If you are working on a bench like this or in a tight space, it is flawless. No problems at all. But I built a boat, which I'll leave the link to that video in the description down below. I built a boat with this thing, and the problem that I had with it was the short leads. And there's not really anything for a welder like this that you can do about that. And so what I ended up having to do was take the welder into the boat with me for a lot of the welding that I was doing. And I found myself doing that on a lot of projects. I did some floor pans in a vehicle with it, and that was kind of a pain. Having to move the welder around, move the bottle around. You can't really have it on a cart for stuff like that because the thing's just not long enough. The cords aren't. And so because of that, for versatility, I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5 stars. Once again, no fault to this thing. It's just not designed for that necessarily, and so it's kind of a pain. It doesn't weigh a whole lot, so it's not hard to move around. It's just not as easy as rolling around on a cart. Okay, so for the next one, we're going to talk about the durability of this thing, and for that, I wanted to bring you up nice and close so you can see there's some damage done to this welder. There's this backside is supposed to look like that, and then there's supposed to be a handle that goes across there. And then it's a little dented down over there, and the door, without a little persuasion, doesn't quite fit, but it will, right? See, now it's in its home. What happened here was I dropped a 300 cubic foot bottle on it. For reference, these bottles over here are 125 cubic feet. And so I dropped one a little over twice the size of one of those onto this because of the versatility issue that we just talked about, me having to move it around a whole bunch and it not being able to be on a cart. And the welder still works phenomenally, has zero issues at all, other than it looks a little goofy now. So for durability, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 stars. This thing has taken an absolute beating from me, and it continues to work flawlessly. Now we are at the price point. So currently it's 2022, April-ish, and I just looked on Harbor Freight's website today, and it's on sale for $499. I think the original list price was $570. And I'm giving that a 5 out of 5 stars. You're not going to get a welder like this that's as capable as this from anybody else for the same price. It's just not going to happen. I mean, the Miller 211 is probably what I would compare this to, mostly because I have the experience with it, and it's a fraction of the price, and it works phenomenally. It doesn't weigh a whole lot, and it's just wonderful. All right, and this kind of all leads into the conclusion. So in conclusion, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 5 stars. It's not a perfect welder, and I've already discussed that. It's got its flaws and it's got things wrong with it, but for $500-ish, you have a machine that can weld aluminum, it can weld steel, it can weld stainless steel. The opportunities are not endless, but pretty much endless for what you can do, especially as a hobby welder, with this machine. Just to kind of highlight some of the bigger projects that I've done with this, I built an entire boat with this welder. I've done some headache racks, done some roll cages. I've done a ton of welding tables, welding carts, little odds and ends jobs. I have probably about 300 hours of welding time on this machine in the last 2 years, and it's just been phenomenal. When I was building the boat, I took 6 weeks off of work, and just went to town, and I was working 10, 12-hour days working on that boat and getting it running, and 90% of the time was spent welding, and this thing just, I have had zero real issues with it. So if you're looking for a good welder that will do things that most people would tell you need something really expensive for, this welder for a hobby guy is hands down 10 out of 10, 10 out of 5 would recommend it. So now let's get into the giveaway stuff. All right, so the giveaway. Here's the details. Here's the down low. So I want to grow this channel to something bigger than it is now, a lot bigger. We're pretty small. And so in order to do that, I'm going to bribe you with a little bit of candy. So the candy is the welder. I'm giving away the titanium MiG 170 and the titanium 150 amp spool gun. And that will get you set up to weld aluminum, steel, stainless steel, all for free. No strings attached. You don't have to buy anything. No gimmicks here. All you have to do is you have to subscribe to the channel, and then you have to comment on this video down below, free welder. That's all you have to do. Once we get to 10,000 subscribers, I will be giving this whole setup away to one of you guys. So just make sure you subscribe and then comment down below, free welder. All right? Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.